hear the word traitor, what comes to mind? A liar? A cheater? A thief? Or maybe even a TV show? But what if I told you I was a traitor to myself long before I ever appeared on television? And that is what I want to talk to you about today. I was doing this work quietly long before the television cameras ever showed up, because the most damaging betrayals in our lives are rarely public. They're private, and they usually look like coping.
I was born into a very traditional Welsh family. My parents were married 58 years. My dad was a factory worker. My mother was a stay-at-home mum. I have 3 brothers, Simon, Kevin, and Carl. My parents tried so hard for a girl, they just kept their own boys. Loving my family is expressed physically, not emotionally. A roof over my head, clothes on my back, and food on the table. I've never heard my parents say the words, "I love you." But I now understand the generation they come from, they find it hard to express their feelings and emotions. My parents are amazing people, but they're creatures of habit with a fixed mindset.
They really struggle with change. My parents, neither of them can drive. They've never been on an aeroplane abroad. They have food at the same time every day. 1 o'clock is lunch, 5 o'clock is dinner. They watch the same things on television: Emmerdale Farm, Coronation Street, Antiques Roadshow, Andre Roux. They don't have mobile phones. They don't have internet either. So I learned very early on what was acceptable and what wasn't worth saying out loud. Sport in my family was massive, particularly rugby, and I played rugby from the age of 5. All my brothers played rugby to a very high standard. They were very talented rugby players. But the problem was, I attached my self-worth, my value and identity, and my father's love and affection to rugby. He'd come and watch me playing all my matches, he'd be smiling. So that's what I had. I struggled with that. At 14 years of age, then I started going to the gym. And then in later life, I worked in the security industry. So environments where you're told to man up, where showing feelings and emotions is seen as a weakness. I wasn't lying to myself. I was trying to fit in. And how did I know if I was on the right track and developing into a young, decent, strong young man? I'll tell you. By how many pints I could drink, by how many girls I'd been with, how many fights I had won, and how much I could bench press in the gym. Those were the measures that were used to work out your pecking order amongst your peers. At every stage of my life, I was slowly betraying parts of myself. Not because I was weak, but because I wanted connection. Then came the night that changed everything, the 28th of August, 1999. The Andrew that everyone knew, including himself, he died on the side of the road. The car I was driving, carrying 4 passengers, hit a curb on the left-hand side, and I flipped the car onto the right-hand side, and I was thrown through the driver's side window, the door. So my head and my arm were being dragged along the floor for a couple of 100 yards, and when the car eventually stopped sliding, it leant on top of me.
When the fire brigade, the ambulance, and the police turned up with the vehicle, they initially thought I was dead on the side of the road. The fire brigade had to lift the car off me so they could get under to work on me underneath the car. I had to be given more blood on the side of the road because the average man has between 10 and 12 pints of blood in their body. I got 6. The first hospital I got taken to could do nothing for me. I was then rushed to a second hospital where neurology and plastic surgery was. While all this was going on, my poor parents had the dreaded knock on the door that no parent wants. "Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins, you have to come with us now. Your son has been involved in a road traffic accident." "Okay, officer, we'll just get changed, we'll be with you." "You haven't got time to get changed. You have to come now, it's critical." So they were put in the back of a police car and rushed to the first hospital. But as soon as they got there, I was on a trolley coming out of the hospital to be put in the back of an ambulance to get transferred to the second hospital. My parents really loved to see me, because as you can imagine, my head being dragged on the tarmac wasn't a pretty sight. It's not a great sight now, but it's a lot worse back then. My dad asked if he could travel in the ambulance with me, and he was told no, because there's a doctor, a nurse, and all machinery keeping his son alive.
They were taken into a side room in the hospital and told they don't think I'm going to make the trip to the second hospital, which is probably around about 40 minutes. So my parents followed the ambulance in a police car behind, blue lights flashing, sirens blaring. I was rushed straight into the theatre then. The first operation I had was to remove all the bone from my brain, take all the skin and hair off the back of my head, and put it onto the top of my head, and work on saving my arm. I was then in a coma. My family were told on numerous occasions that he's not going to make it. And they were also told that from the scans they had done on me, I had severe brain damage because there's lots of shadows on my brain. So there's a chance I'll never wake up, but if I do, it's highly likely that I won't be able to talk, walk, use my arms, or recognize anyone ever again. 4 weeks later, I woke from my coma, scared, frightened, didn't know where I was, what had happened to me. I had a tube in my throat so I could breathe, a tube in my groin feeding me, a tube in the other groin pumping me full of morphine, painkillers. My parents were on my bedside crying, had to explain where I was and what had happened to me. The surgeon then came round about a week later, and he stood by my bedside, and he said to me, "You're never ever going to walk again." After the initial shock, my first response was, "I guarantee I'll walk at this hospital." And he said, "You won't." And I said, "I will." And he said, "You won't." I said, "I will." So 2 months later, I got helped out of bed, helped to my feet. And I literally could not find my legs. I couldn't find my legs. I literally stood there, and the physiotherapist had to pick my feet up, put one in front of the other, and a few days later I remembered to walk, and 2 weeks later, I let go of the bars and the frame for the first time. I took my first steps and walked. So I proved the experts wrong. I couldn't imagine living my life the way the doctors said I would. I had to pull on all my inner strength and resilience. We all have inner strength and resilience inside us to overcome challenges in life once we're faced with a life-changing pivotal moment. People assume that situations like that automatically wake you up, that surviving something makes you authentic. It doesn't. I may have survived the crash, but I betrayed myself for 24 years by not speaking my truth. I betrayed myself by remaining silent. I refused counseling. We don't talk about feelings where I come from. I functioned. I smiled. I suffered in silence. I suffered privately. I wore a cloak, otherwise known as a mask. That silence wasn't resilience. It was self-abandonment. I didn't just betray myself once. I did it every single day by not speaking my truth. 3 years ago, I tracked down the man who saved my life, the man who operated on the night of my accident. And I went to see him, and I walked into his office, and as you can imagine,
it was a very emotional day. It's not every day you get the chance to shake the hand of the person who saved your life. I walked into where he is, and he said, "Wow, you're a miracle." He said, "You should have died. You should have died on so many occasions. I can't believe how big and strong you are." So meeting the man who saved my life didn't rescue me, it held a mirror up to me. I realized then, that was the day my mask or my cloak came off. I realized I had to stop abandoning myself. My first protocol, my first priority was to speak to my loved ones, my family. So I sat on a Friday afternoon with my parents at the dining room table, and I was genuinely petrified. I'd never sat with my parents and had a deep meaningful conversation before, especially one about feelings and emotions. They said to me, "You changed after the accident. You went quiet, moody, miserable. The old Andrew's gone." I said, "I didn't think I fit in my family. I didn't think Dad loved me anymore, so I couldn't play rugby and make him proud. My 3 brothers were still playing rugby at high standards, so I'd see my dad talking to my brothers and smiling and having this attention. So I thought they were better than me."
I didn't belong. I didn't belong in my own family. I then spoke, me and my son had a 4.5-hour chat on a Saturday morning about life. And at the end of that conversation, I told him I loved him for the first time in his life. He was 22 years of age. I'd never told my son I loved him. So I was raising him exactly the same way as I had been raised. But I also told him I was proud of him. I've now broken that generational cycle in my family. It's now normal to say the words, "I love you" to each other. And then next up was my brothers. So I sat with my oldest brother Simon on a Saturday afternoon, my other brother Kevin on a Sunday, and my other brother Carl on a Monday. So that weekend was like a huge therapy weekend. I put them conversations off for over 20 years. But 85% of what we worry about never comes true. 13% comes true, but better than we thought. It's only 2% that comes true. So all that worry and overthinking, but when I had them conversations, it was fine. So if there's anybody in the audience who's putting off a conversation, please be brave and courageous and have that conversation. It might not be that bad. Life is short. We don't know what's around the corner. It was from then I started speaking honestly, sharing my story on social media, breaking silence. And it was that work which led me to Invitation on the Traitors. I wasn't fame-seeking. It wasn't reinvention. I saw it as a platform. And it was on that show I realized what was really important to me in life. That was connection to myself, connection to my loved ones, and to take my story to the wider world. It is now my purpose and mission to shatter stigmas out there which keep around mental health, which keep people suffering in silence. The show didn't give me a voice, it gave my voice a bigger room. So we all have choices in life, and I chose to live a more authentic life, which took a huge weight off my shoulders. So we don't need a TV show, you don't need permission, you don't need a breakdown. We all have choices in life, and I chose to live an even more authentic life from that moment. And I want to give you 4 powerful choices that I did which helped me to remove my mask and stop being a traitor to myself. I chose to look in the mirror. No more judgment. Not what's wrong with me, but also, not what am I avoiding. I also chose to look inwards, my patterns, my flaws, and my triggers. Your triggers aren't weaknesses, they're signposts. I also lent in my vulnerable side, speaking to people close to me who I trusted, speaking honestly, breaking silence. Silencing destroyed me. Speaking saved me. I chose to take responsibility for my physical health and mental health, choosing learning over performance. I stopped confusing survival with living. The day I stopped being a traitor to myself, I didn't become someone new, I became someone honest. We've all got that courage inside us to remove that mask and be authentic. I want to leave you with one thing. Who could you become, and what could you achieve if you had the courage to remove your mask and live an even more authentic life starting right now? Thank you.